The Leominster City Council meeting is funded in part by DeCarolis Insurance Agency at www.decarolisinsuranceagency.com and by Avidia Bank at www.avidiabank.com.
Yeah, that's why Chicago's been. Yeah. What they've done in the last week if they can, because they figure this out, even down to people that they run a payroll that not even want.
Could be. Could be. It's just amazing what they're uncovering.
Okay, it's 6:55, or actually 6:56. We're going to conduct the public forum. The public forum is an opportunity for any member of the audience to speak on a matter specifically listed on the council agenda. Speakers will be asked to come to the microphone and state their formal name and address, along with identifying the specific item or items they wish to address. Each speaker is respectfully asked to keep their comments within a 2-minute time frame. The council will not be responding or answering any questions. However, at the discretion of the council president, clarification may be given. We don't have anybody formally signed up, but I'll ask, is there any member of the public that wishes to address the city council on an agenda item this evening? And for a second time, is there any member of the public that wishes to address the city council on an agenda item? And for a third and final time, is there any member of the public that wishes to address the city council on an agenda item? Seeing none, I'll declare the public forum closed, and we will formally begin the meeting at 7 p.m. in just a couple minutes.
Oh my God.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll now take the roll of the councilors in attendance, starting with Councilor David Cormier.
Present.
Councilor Pauline Cormier.
Present.
Councilor Arndinger.
Present.
Councilor Angelini.
Present.
Councilor Tossi.
Present.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Present.
Councilor Robbins.
Present.
Councilor Frida.
Present.
And I'll mark myself present. All 9 members of the council are present and in attendance. Moving on to records. Does the chairwoman of records have a report?
Thank you, Mr. President. I have reviewed the minutes from January 27th, 2025, and February 10th, 2025, and I noticed that there was some corrections made late this afternoon, but based on those, I find them to be in good order, and I'd ask that they be placed on file.
Okay, unless there's an objection, that may be done. Moving on to communications from the mayor, starting with C39.
D&J Mazzarella Mayor requests that an appropriation of $2 million be made to the Police Station Capital Project Fund. The same amount is to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account. This is to help pay down the outstanding debt on the police construction.
C39 is referred to the chairman of finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. First time on the calendar, regular course.
Very well, C39 has been given regular course. Moving on to C40.
D&J Mazzarella Mayor requests that an appropriation of $637,722.05 be made to the Sewer Department Capital Outlay Expense Account. The same amount is to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account.
C40 is referred to the chairman of finance.
First time on the calendar, regular course.
Very well, C40 has been given regular course. Moving on to C41.
D&J Mazzarella Mayor requests that an appropriation of $167,039.79 be made to the Water Department Capital Outlay Expense Account. The same is to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account.
And C41 is referred to the chairman of finance.
Regular course.
Thank you very much. Regular course. C42.
D&J Mazzarella Mayor requests that an appropriation of $675,000 be made to the Snow and Ice account. The same amount to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account. Snow and Ice expense $525,000. Snow and Ice overtime $150,000.
C42 is referred to the chairman of finance.
Once again, regular course.
Very well, C42 has been given regular course. Moving on to C43.
D&J Mazzarella Mayor requests that an appropriation of $375,000 be made to the rubbish account, the same amount to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account due to the increase in recycling costs and mattress disposals.
C43 is referred to the chairman of finance.
C-43 is also given regular course.
Very well, C44.
D&J Mazzarella Mayor requests an appropriation of $1,250,000 to be made to the stabilization fund, the same amount to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account.
C44 is referred to the chairman of finance.
Regular course.
C44 is given regular course. Moving on to C45.
D&J Mazzarella Mayor requests that an appropriation of $250,000 be made to the Fire Department Public Safety Overtime Account, the same to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account.
C45 is referred to the chairman of finance.
I'm going to defer this one to the clerk of finance. I need to abstain for an immediate family member.
So noted. Madam Chairwoman?
Thank you, Mr. President. Regular course, please.
Very well, C45 has been given regular course. Moving on to C46.
D&J Mazzarella Mayor requests that an appropriation of an estimated $163,300.53 be made to the following fire account, the same account to be transferred from the collective bargaining expense account, to fund the remaining portion of the first year, fiscal year 2025, of contract settlement from fiscal year 2025 through fiscal year 2027 agreement.
C46 is referred to the chairman of finance.
I'm also going to defer this to the clerk.
All right,
Finance.
Madam Chairwoman?
Thank you, Mr. President. Regular course.
Very well, C46 may be given regular course. Moving on to C47.
D&J Mazzarella Mayor requests that an appropriation of an estimated $12,908 be made to the following paramedics account, the same to be transferred from the collective bargaining expense account to fund the remaining portion of the first year, fiscal year 2025 of contract settlement from fiscal year 2025 through fiscal year 2027 agreement.
Abstaining?
Oh, I'm okay with this
You
one.
okay with this one?
This one will get regular course.
Very well. C-47 is regular course. Move on to C-48.
Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that an appropriation of an estimated $64,898.34 be made to the following non-union accounts, the same amount to be transferred from the collective bargaining expense account to fund first year, fiscal year 2025 of contract settlement from fiscal year 2025 through fiscal year 2027 agreement.
C-48 is referred to the Chairman of Finance.
Regular course.
C-48 has been given regular course. Moving on to C-49.
Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that an appropriation of $25,000 be made to the paramedics overtime account, the same amount to be transferred from the excess deficiency account.
C-49 is referred to the Chairman of Finance.
Once again, regular course.
Very well, C-49 has been given regular course. Moving on to petitions, first time on the agenda, starting with 31-25.
Entertainment Cinemas Leominster LLC requests to renew license at 45 Sac Boulevard, Leominster, Mass.
31-25 is referred to the Chairwoman of Ways and Means.
Thank you, Mr. President. Regular course, please.
Very well, 31-25 has been given regular course. Moving on to 32-25.
Susan Schaufel Zephyr, City Councilor at Large, requests the installation of 2 poles for placement of permanent speed feedback signs on Mechanic Street at approximately the same location as the temporary speed feedback trailer previously placed by the Leominster Police Department on Mechanic Street. Location to be determined by the Leominster Police Department and DPW.
32-25 is referred to the Chairwoman of Public Safety and Traffic.
Regular course, Mr. President, with referrals both to the DPW and the Police Department.
Might I suggest the Mayor's office too, because of the capital nature of it?
Certainly. Thank you.
And we're going to suggest, we have a very busy calendar on the 10th of March, so we're going to suggest March 24th at 6:40. That's okay with you.
24th at 6:40. That's fine.
All right. All those in favor of establishing a public hearing on 32-25 for March 24th at 6:40 p.m. with referrals to DPW, Police Department, and Mayor, please recognize your usual manner. Okay, so that may be done.
Mr. President?
Yes.
To the chair, to the chairperson?
Yes.
Are these just poles you're asking to put up, or the speed limits as well?
No, just the poles for the signs that the DPW has in-house.
What's that? Okay, moving on to 33-25.
House of Relics request to renew license to deal secondhand dealer articles at 1292 Main Street, Leominster, Mass.
33-25 is referred to the Chairwoman of Ways and Means.
Thank you, Mr. President. Regular course.
Very well. 33-25 has been given regular course. Moving on to 34-25.
Eco ATM LLC requests to renew license to deal secondhand dealer articles at 11 Jungle Road, Leominster, Mass.
34-25 is referred to the Chairwoman of Ways and Means.
Thank you, Mr. President. Regular course.
Very well. 34-25 has been given regular course. 35-25.
Kenneth Delgado, 8 Highland Street, Lancaster, Mass. Requests to amend the current lot width under zoning district RB for 2 family dwellings. Excuse me. The amendment would consist of changing the minimum requirement width from 80 feet to 50 feet for 2 family dwellings. The current frontage requirement for 2 family dwellings in RB is 50 feet, and 80 feet lot width requirement would create pork chop lots, which the city does not favor. Lot configuration would be rectangular and consistent if both frontage and lot width were equal. This is for, excuse me, I lost my train of thought.
It's referencing.
Regarding referencing 1420, 1426, and 1428 Central Street, Leominster, Mass.
35-25 is referred to the Chairman of Legal Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. President. First time on the calendar, regular course with referrals to the Building Commissioner and the Planning Board. And of course, we need to schedule a public hearing. And once again, I know that we have quite a agenda for our March 10th meeting, so
We won't, I don't know if we'll make it on March 24th, so I'm going to suggest the first meeting in April 14th at 6:45 PM, if that's okay with you.
That's fine with me, Mr. President.
Okay, so 35-25 is being given regular course with referrals to the building and planning departments. Suggested public hearing date of April 14th at 6:45 PM. All those in favor, please recognize usual manner. All right, so that may be done. Moving on to matters before the City Council, starting with the financial report. The chairman ready to report.
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. We began the fiscal year on July 1, 2024. The city's stabilization fund had $22,927,553.81. We have earned interest in the amount of $343,294.67. Pending the 2/10/25 through that date, we will have spent $1,134,350.45, which will leave us a balance of $22,136,498.03. The City of Leominster's Capital Stabilization Fund began with and still has a balance of $2,193,191.62. The Opioid Stabilization Fund began with a balance of $518,703.20. We have increased with some incoming funds of $172,743.90. We have spent $133,000 so far, and that leaves us with a balance of $558,447.10. And then the free cash, we began with $15,008,891, and we already are proposing to spend about a third of it. If all these appropriations are, or all these repayments are made and appropriations are made at the next meeting, we will have spent $5,379,761.84, and that would leave us with a balance of $9,629,129.16. And then I'll ask everybody to turn to the last page that was provided. The mayor and Jen Reddington have asked that they come down to the next meeting. I know they're going to be, the mayor's going to be here anyway to talk about the one of the appropriations for one of the financial items for the meals tax. But some of the things that they're looking are listed here to do with the rest of our free cash, which would total about $8 million, and they're going to talk about these things at the next meeting. And if we move forward with those, it would leave us with about $1.6 million in funds to do what we need to between now and the end of June. And so I would ask any members of the City Council, they have any questions regarding any of this, that they get them ready, and Jen Reddington and the mayor will be here at the next meeting to discuss them. And that is the financial report.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
Yep, thank you very much. So in looking at this last page, the appropriate, well, it's actually the second to the last page, sorry. Appropriations submitted. The last one says paramedic overtime of $250,000, but the request is for $25,000.
Okay. I'll have to ask the comptroller about that. I want to say that 250,000 is very high. It's probably 25, so that's probably, it's probably 25,000, but I will double check with her.
Great, thank you.
I think they added too many zeros on the financial report, but the appropriation is correct, but I will double check and confirm that.
That would make sense, given the fact that the second round is 25,000 as well.
Correct.
But that's good to look into. Anything else on the financial report before we move on? Okay, moving on then to C34, is the chairman ready to report?
Yes, Mr. President. C-34 Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests an appropriation of $670,000 be made to the Manusnock Brook project account, the same amount to be transferred from the Park Grant Capital account. As everyone knows, right here in downtown Leominster, we are going to be embarking on that project. It's been in the works for a while. We do have a letter dated February 3rd. I can read it quickly. This is regarding a request for appropriation of $670,000 to be made to the Manusnock Brook project account, same amount to be transferred from the Park Grant Capital account. Dear members of City Council, I am requesting the amount of $670,000 be made to the Manusnock Brook project account. After 3 years of hard work and coordination by our city team and consultants, the city has been awarded $5,992,200 from FEMA for the repair of the Manusnock Brook alongside Manning Avenue. The total project cost is $6,658,000, with the city's match of $665,800, which is 10%. As you know, one side of the bank of the brook collapsed in 2017. In 2019, we started the process of development of our climate action plan, which determined that Manusnock Brook should be the #1 priority for infrastructure projects in the city. In 2020 and 2021, we were awarded 2 MVP, which stands for Massachusetts Vulnerability Preparedness Program, grants for the design and engineering of a comprehensive project to repair the brook and related culvert from Central Street to Mechanic Street. In 2022, we submitted the grant to FEMA with the award and notice to proceed coming this past December. The transfer of funds for this 10% match is coming from the reimbursement of the park grant for downtown common project and the reimbursement of the land grant for the purchase of the Pierce Street property. I have attached a proposed design of the project. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me, Dean J. Meserel, Mayor. So I think we all know that this has been in the works for a while. The flood that we had in 2023 did not help matters over there. One of the things that I did discuss with the grants writer, Wendy Weeks, was that we were going to be able to retain the parking lot at this location, because a lot of these areas now, when you're doing projects like this, they want them to be, I guess what they refer to it as daylighting them, kind of like what we're going to do at the corner of Pleasant and Colburn. Pleasant and Colburn with that house. They want to daylight that. They want that kind of restored to where it was. So the big thing with this was they didn't want to lose the parking lot. So we're going to retain the parking lot. It's probably going to be painful during construction, but at least in the end, the parking lot will still be there. They're not requiring us to daylight the area. So obviously you can see the very little bit of money that we have to put up to get a lot of much needed improvements there. So it would certainly be my recommendation that we grant C-34. And Mr. President, I would ask that you check with members of my committee.
Councilor Pauline Cormier?
I just want to add my shout out to our grants writer, Wendy Weeks. This is a fantastic project, and I'm happy to support it.
Thank you. And Councilor Angelini?
I'd like to do the same. At the risk of being redundant, I know that our grant administrator put a great deal of work into this. This is a big one. It will be a tremendous betterment to downtown at very low cost to the city. So I will make it unanimous, the positive recommendation, Mr. President.
Thank you. You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-34. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Frida?
Yeah, I just want to add as well, over the last couple of years, there have been Zoom meetings and phone conversations regarding the MVP grants, and most of the surrounding businesses are on that, and there was a lot of discussion about the parking lot, how to save the majority of the parking lot and the rerouting. Everybody seemed to be happy with the changes that were made, and we know it has to be done, and there's been a lot of input, so it isn't just a quick fix that money came and we're doing it. It's been a long process that everybody's been involved in and been pretty transparent, and a lot of recommendations on just how to deal with it with most of the restaurants in the area. So I'm certainly supportive.
Thank you, Counselor. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-34, please recognize usual manner. Anyone opposed? By a vote of 9-0, C-34 is granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Yes, Mr. President, order that the sum of $670,000 be made to the Manusnock Brook project account, the same amount to be transferred from the Park Grant Capital account. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the order, please indicate by saying yea.
Yay.
Anyone opposed? The order is adopted by a vote of 9-0. Moving on to C-35.
C-35, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that an appropriation of $27,000 be made to the North Nashua project account, same to be transferred from the Park Grant Capital account. So we also have another letter here dated February 3rd from the mayor regarding this project. Dear members of the City Council, I'm requesting that the amount of $27,000 be made to the North Nashua project account. As you know, the city received a grant from FEMA for Phase 1 of the North Nashua project to complete the stabilization of the bank along the river to prevent exposure of the infrastructure attached to the treatment plant along the Nashua River near the connector. That project was successfully completed last year with a FEMA grant of $990,000, 10% match from the city. The Phase 2 grant is in the amount of $1,587,600. The total project cost is $1,764,000, with a local 10% match of $176,400. At this time, we are asking for $27,000, which is the city's portion of the project cost to bring the project through design, permitting, and bidding. The project scope includes stabilization of another section of the southern embankment that is eroding along a 400 linear foot section of the North Nashua River. The transfer of funds is coming from the reimbursement of the park grant for the downtown common project and the reimbursement from land grant for the purchase of the Pierce Street property. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me. So obviously we are beginning to the phase design of embarking on another piece of this project, and it obviously would be my recommendation that we grant C-35, and I would ask that you check with members of my committee.
Councilor Pauline Cormier
I agree.
and Councilor Angelini.
I agree as well.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-35. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please recognize your usual manner. Anybody opposed? By a vote of 9-0, C-35 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Yes, Mr. President, order that the sum of $27,000 be made to the North Nashua project account, same amount to be transferred from the Park Grant Capital account. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the order, please indicate by saying yea.
Yay.
Anyone opposed? The order is adopted by a vote of 9-0. Moving on to C-37.
C-37, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that an appropriation of $250,000 be made to the Police Department overtime account, the same amount to be transferred from the stabilization fund. We did receive a letter here dated February 4th, 2025 from Chief Malatis. Dear Mayor Mazzarella, over the last several months, our overtime budget has been depleted from major investigations, contractual obligations for time off, and shift overtime. I would also like to forecast supervisor overtime in March due to an upcoming retirement. As a result, I am requesting $250,000 in additional overtime. Thank you for your consideration, Chief Malatis. Obviously, you know, this is customary given the shortfalls we have in staffing at times, and also there have been, as explained, a couple of major investigations that had to take place that that caused significant overtime. So it'd be my recommendation that we grant C-37, and I'll ask that you check with members of my committee.
Councilor Pauline Cormier?
I agree.
Councilor Angelini?
I'll make it unanimous, Mr. President.
Very well. You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-37. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-37, please recognize in the usual manner. Anybody opposed? By a vote of 9-0, C-37 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Yes, Mr. President, order that the sum of $250,000 be made to the Police Department overtime account, the same amount to be transferred from the stabilization fund. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request to adopt the order. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the order, please indicate by saying yea.
Yea.
Anyone opposed? By a vote of 9-0, the order has been adopted. Moving on to C-38.
C-38, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that the following cable receipts reserved for appropriation be established pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53F3/4. We have a letter here dated February 4th, 2025, from the mayor. Dear members of the City Council, I'm writing the request that the City Council vote to accept General Law, Chapter 64L, Section 2A, to implement a I'm reading the wrong one. My apologies. Dated February 3rd, 2025, dear members of the City Council, in recent years, the legislation for cable and other broadcasting entities has changed. In the current year, we have updated our contract with Verizon, and this requires the city to set up a special revenue fund for the city's allocated and contractual funds to flow through. I respectfully request the following cable receipts reserved for appropriation be established pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53F3/4. Article/order to see if the city will accept General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53F and 3/4, which establishes a special revenue fund known as the PEG Access and Cable-Related Fund to reserve cable franchise fees and other cable-related revenues for appropriation to support PEG access services and oversight and renewal of the cable franchise agreement. The fund to begin operation for fiscal year 2025, which begins on July 1, 2024, or take another action relative thereto. Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor. I did talk to Jen Reddington about this. Basically, what is going to happen is laws have changed recently, so we are required to either set up an account like this or set up an enterprise fund. Obviously, the mayor chose this type of an account. And basically, the money will come into us, and then they're going to give it to LTV. Instead of having it go directly to them, the law's changed. It's got to come into the city, into this account, and it's going to go right back out to them. So it would be my recommendation that we grant C-38, and I would ask, I'm sorry, C-38.
38.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ahead of you.
C-38. And I ask that you check with members of my committee.
Very well. Councilor Pauline Cormier?
I agree.
Councilor Angelini?
I'm in agreement as well.
Any discussion? Councilor Frida?
Is this gonna, through the chair, is this gonna require a vote of the council to transfer that money?
That is a good question. I don't know. I will find out, though. She did say the first one might be in a few weeks, so I will find out. We can ask her at the next meeting when they're here.
I would think there'd be a budget, just like water and sewer, that we'll have to approve.
Yeah.
And if there's anything different during the year, it'll probably have to come back down here.
We might be required to vote on it legally, so I'll find out, though, for sure.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair to the finance chair. Also, what I'd like to know from the comptroller is that this is a special revenue fund known as the PEG, Access and Cable Related Fund, to reserve cable franchise fees and other cable-related revenues for appropriation. So my question would be, would any of this money be taken out for appropriation to any other entity or service other than LTV? This is kind of general. So I'd like to know specifically what the money put into that fund could be used for.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, anybody else? All right, I'm going to do this by roll call vote, since we're adopting a statute, starting with Councilor David Cormier.
Yay.
Councilor Pauline Cormier.
Yay.
Councilor Arndinger.
Yay.
Councilor Angelini.
Yay.
Councilor Tossi.
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Yay.
Councilor Robbins.
Yay.
Councilor Frida.
Yay.
I'll be recorded as yay. C-38 is granted by a vote of 9-0. Moving on to C36.
I'll be very quick. Obviously, we're going to have an informational mayor with the, an informational meeting with the mayor on 3/10/2025. So he's requesting further time on this. That meeting's going to be at 6:15. He does want to explain this and go over other items as well. So I'll read it. C-36, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that the City Council vote to accept General Law, Chapter 64L, Section 2A, to implement a local meals tax. And I'm going to give this further time, and I'll ask that you check with members of my committee.
All right, so Councilor Pauline Cormier, you okay with further time?
Yes, thank you.
And Councilor Angelini?
I'm okay with further time
All
as
right,
well.
hearing a unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to give C-36 further time. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-36 further time, please indicate in the usual manner. Okay, very well. C-36 is being given further time to March 10th with a public hearing, yes, at 6:15. All right, moving on to legal affairs. Is the chairman ready to report?
I am, Mr. President, thank you. 29-25 is Elizabeth Wood on behalf of the Planning Board. Request to amend the zoning ordinance pertaining to the floodplain. Federally mandated update to floodplain district EP, Article 6, Section 22-34. Mr. President, as you know, we scheduled a public hearing on this for March 10th at 6:40 p.m. And my request would be for further time, and I would ask you to poll members of my committee.
Councilor Tossi
I agree.
and Councilor Pauline Cormier.
I agree.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to grant 29-25 further time. Is there any discussion? Councilor Frida?
It's actually, a question is probably for the planning board, though. Do we know how drastic a change it is from the existing floodplain? I mean, these are important, these are mortgages, these
Yeah,
are,
no, absolutely. I mean, I sent I asked the city clerk to send council the FEMA panels that were just made available to me a few days ago from Katie Pate, who will be coming down here to put a PowerPoint presentation on. I'll have maps, well, everyone has the maps, but I'll have some printed maps that I'll make available in the clerk's office in another couple of days as well. What I've seen to this point, I reviewed the maps that she provided. I didn't see any significant changes at all, and that's what she told me in the communication that I had with her briefly. I don't want to get too deep into it because obviously this is the hearing, but obviously this is a mandate, and if it's not adopted, if we don't adopt, they provide an ordinance that they want us to follow precisely, and if we pass it, they review it before they accept it. And once it's accepted and we pass it, then the city can continue to participate in the flood insurance program. So it is critical to business.
I know every community is going through it, but we still decide where the floodplain goes. They're not telling us where the floodplain is, I don't believe.
Yeah.
Are they?
Yeah.
They're telling us completely?
Yeah, they're showing the federally regulated waterways and any changes, and like I said, I haven't seen any changes that are significant on any of the maps they provided. She'll be here to answer any questions that we have. She'll do a presentation, and I think by the end of the question and answer period, I think everyone will be satisfied. And again, this is a little different than we usually operate because the planning board actually sent us a request for the ordinance, so they can't give us a referral until we provide them with the ordinance. So we have to have our public hearing, then we send the ordinance that we adopted to the planning board for their referral. And then it'll come back to us again, and then it has to be reread and approved by FEMA before we can do the first and second reading of the ordinance and it's adopted, so.
And we're dealing with a deadline, correct?
The deadline, the drop dead date is, I believe, July 7th or 8th. And, but obviously, they don't want us to wait till the last minute. So we do have time.
That'd be different, not waiting till the last minute.
Well, as you're aware, our planning director was handling this point person on this. She unexpectedly went out, so I was caught kind of blindsided, and I reacted as quickly as possible to get this information forwarded to everyone so we wouldn't.
I'm just concerned because this, if this changes a lot of people's positions on their property, you know, I did an appraisal not too long ago at the Cape, and it was some of the areas of the Cape where sometimes it's just a matter of a nicer area than another area if you change the zip code. And the gentleman insisted on changing the zip code, which threw everything off, and he was in a floodplain, and it was it was a mess. And I know there's a lot of communities that aren't agreeing with the floodplain changes, but I mean, I know we have to do it, but I think we really need to make sure we tell everybody how they're going to be affected if anybody is.
Okay, so we got some work to do. Anything else, Counselor? All right, so I guess the motion on the floor is for further time. All those in favor, please recognize usual manner. Okay, 29-25 is given further time to March 10th with a public hearing scheduled at 6:40 p.m. All right, moving on to 24-25. Is the chairman ready to report?
I am, Mr. President. Thank you. 2425 is Thomas M. Bevenzi, Esquire, on behalf of Steve Boucher. Request to amend the zoning district map for parcel 352-6 such that entire parcel will be zoned Residence B, since a portion is currently zoned industrial. Once again, at our last meeting, I informed everyone that the planning board had reached out and told us they had a public hearing scheduled for this March 3rd. We continued this hearing to March 10th so that we'd be in receipt of that referral prior to the hearing. So once again, this hearing is scheduled for March 10th at 6:45. Therefore, I would ask for further time, and I would ask you to poll members of my committee.
Councilor Tossi?
I agree.
Councilor Pauline Cormier?
I agree.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of Legal Affairs to give 24-25 further time. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of giving 24-25 further time, please recognize usual manner. 24-25 is given further time till March 10th, 2025 at 6:45 p.m. by a vote of 9-0. Moving on to Ways and Means, is the chairwoman ready to report?
Mr. President,
Yes.
I'm going to recuse myself from 28-25.
Yeah, okay, for obvious reasons. All right, Madam Chairwoman, you ready to report?
Thank you, Mr. President. 28-25, Ginny's Helping Hand Incorporated requests to renew the license to deal secondhand dealer articles at 52 Mechanic Street, Leominster. I can report that I have read the application. They do have all their certificates in good standing from the police department and the tax collector for the city, as well as their tax revenue certificate from the state and their business certificate, so it looks like everything is in order. It would be my position to approve the renewal of the license, and I'd ask you to check with other members of my committee.
Councilor Ottinger?
I agree.
Councilor David Cormier?
I also agree.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation to grant 28-25. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those, please recognize your usual manner. 28-25 has been granted by a vote of 8-0. Excuse me. Moving on to 30-25.
Thank you, Mr. President. 30-25, George's Fine Jewelers Incorporated request to renew license to deal secondhand dealer articles at 255 North Street, Leominster, Mass. Again, I reviewed this application. The application is completed in full with certificates of good standing from both the tax collector and the police department, their tax revenue certificate from the state, business certificate. So it'd be my position to approve the renewal of the license, and I'd ask you to check with members of my committee.
Councilor Ottinger?
I agree.
Councilor David Cormier?
I also agree.
You heard the unanimous recommendation from the Ways and Means Committee to grant 30-25. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please recognize the usual manner. Anybody opposed? By a vote of 9-0, 30-25 has been granted. We have no new business listed on the agenda. Do we have any old business? Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
Yep, thank you very much. Through the chair to the finance chair, I have another question about C49, which is the request for appropriation of $25,000 for paramedics overtime. Could you please ask the fire chief why? I mean, is this at all due in part to the labor and delivery unit closure? or is it, for some other reason? I just don't remember a paramedic overtime coming down at this level.
Yep, I certainly will ask him again, but in the past, I've asked him, and he indicated it has nothing to do with the labor and delivery closing. What happens is there's 4 shifts, there's 2 paramedics per shift, there's a total of 8 there should be a total of 8 paramedics. They only have 7. So they staff an extra position with overtime. It's by design, that's how they want to run the department. And I believe they're still doing that. I will double check, but that is what's going on there. That's the reason for the overtime, because they staff one position with overtime. Plus, anybody's on vacation or out sick, there's not an extra paramedic hanging around to just fill it. They have to hire an overtime person for that. But I'll double check. I'll ask for a breakdown.
Yep.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other old business? Community calendar? Councilor Frida?
It's not a community calendar, but I just wanted to commend the police department. I was waiting for my daughter to come out of Demolers last week, and I saw 2 police walking the parking lot, and I thought they were looking for somebody. So I stopped them and asked them what they were doing, and they were actually checking for violations in handicap parking spots, which I thought was really, really a credit to them, because it's really abuse quite often. So it was certainly a good point.
That's that money we appropriate from the fines account, going to good use. Okay, seeing nothing else, I'll motion to adjourn. Councilor Shalfo Zephyr, Councilor Iringer, all in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
The Leominster City Council meeting is funded in part by DeCarolis Insurance Agency at www.decarolisinsuranceagency.com and by Avidia Bank at www.avidiabank.com.